Hello and welcome. In this video we want to learn about average rate of change of a function. Consider the function f of x and suppose the graph of the function f of x is something like this. It can be any graph, but suppose the graph of the function f of x is something like this. If the value of x changes from x1 to x2, because x changes corresponding to change in x, the y value of the function also changes from f of x1 to f of x2. The change in x causes the change in y values of the function. This should be obvious. We define the average rate of change for function f by this formula. The average rate of change of the function is f of x2 minus f of x1 over x2 minus x1. This is the definition of the average rate of change of a function. But basically, this formula should be familiar to you. If you remember, the f of x2 minus f of x1 is like y2 minus y1. And it should remind you that this is rise and x2 minus x1 is like run. So basically, average rate of change of a function shows the ratio of the rise over run. It shows that in our function, if x changes from x1 to x2, how much change happens in the y values, and it shows the ratio between the change in y over change in x. So basically, average rate of change is like the slope of secant line, because look at the formula. It's f of x2 minus f of x1 over x2 minus x1, and it's basically like rise over run. So now that we know the definition of average rate of change of a function, let's do this example so we can understand it better. Find the average rate of change of the function f of x equals x to the 3 plus 2x over the interval 1 to 3. So we have a function and we want to know what is the average rate of change of this function over this interval. Based on the definition of the average rate of change, if we want to find the average rate of change of a function, we have to find f of 3 minus f of 1 over 3 minus 1, because here x1 is 1 and x sub 2 is 3. So for finding the average rate of change, we have to find this ratio. We have to find f of 3 minus f of 1 over 3 minus 1. Now let's see what is f of 3 and what is f of 1. F of 3 would be 3 to the power of 3 plus 2 times 3. 3 to the power of 3 is 27. 2 times 3 is 6. 27 plus 6 is 33. What is f of 1? Because we need f of 1 also. It would be 1 to the 3 plus 2 times 1, it equals 3. So average rate of change of our function would be 33 minus 3 over 3 minus 1. 33 minus 3 is 30. 3 minus 1 is 2. 30 over 2 is 15. So this shows that this 15 shows that when x values changes from 1 to 3, averagely the y value of this function changes 15 units per change in x. So this shows the average rate of change of the function. The function is actually the y values. Now look at the next question. Look at this given table. This given table shows the blood alcohol concentration in a normal body after 1 hour of consumption of 50 milliliter of ethanol. So basically, let's see what is this table again. For example, after 1 hour, the alcohol concentration in blood is 0.04. Probably the unit should be gram per liter or another unit of volume. So we don't care so much here for the unit. So the alcohol concentration in the blood is 0.04 after 1 hour. After 2 hours of consumption, as you can see, the concentration is smaller, it's lower, which makes sense. After 4 hours, the concentration is 0.015, and after 8 hours, it's very small and it is 0.008. So now that we know what is this table, what is these values, let's see what is the question. We are asked to find the average rate of change of C. C is the concentration of the alcohol in the blood with respect to T, which is time. So we want to find the average rate of change with respect to time over the given intervals. The first interval is 1 to 2. For this interval, the average rate of change of concentration is simply C2 minus C1 over 2 minus 1. For finding C2 and C1, we have to use our table. When T is 2, the C value, C of 2 is 0.02. So 0.02 minus C1. When T is 1, C1 is 0.04. So we have to subtract these two values over 2 minus 1, which is 1. 0.02 minus 0.04 is negative 0.02. And maybe you wonder why the average rate of change is negative. It's obvious, because over time the concentration decreases. The concentration of alcohol in the body decreases. So that's the reason the average rate of change is negative. The next interval is 1 to 4. For this interval, if you want to find the average rate of change, it would be C4 minus C at 1, the concentration when T is 1, over 4 minus 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. So what is C4? When T is 4, the C4 is 0.05. So we have 0.015. At 1, 0.04. So now we have to calculate 0.015 minus 0.04. If you subtract 0.015, if you subtract 0.04 from 0.015 and you divide it by 3, the answer of this is negative 0.00083. And these 3 repeats, so we have 3, 3, 3. We can write it this way. This shows the average rate of change over this interval. And finally, when the interval is 2 to 8, average rate of change simply would be C of 8 minus C of 2 over 8 minus 2. 8 minus 2 is 6. Let's see what is the concentration 8 hours after consumption. It's 0.008. 0.008. What was the concentration 2 hours after? 0.02. 0.02. If you subtract these two values, it would be negative 0.009. 1 2 divide by 6. If you calculate this equals negative 0.002, and this shows the average rate of change of concentration of alcohol in the body over time. Now let me show you another question. The cost of producing X unit of a product is given by this equation. C of X equals 0.5 x to the 2 plus 100x plus 50,000. Find the average rate of change of cost with respect to X when production level has changed from 100 to 110. So we want to know averagely how much change in the cost of production happens when we change the production level from 100 to 110. And to find that, we have to find this 110 minus 100. By finding this ratio, we can find the average rate of change of cost when the production level changes from 100 to 110. So first we have to find the cost of production when production level is 110. For finding C of 110, you have to plug in 110 in this equation here and here. So first we have to find the cost of 110 production. It would be 0.5 times 110 to the 2 plus 100 times 110 plus 50,000. If you use a calculator or if you calculate this by yourself, you can see that this equals to 67,050. And the cost when the production level is 100 would be 0.5 times 100 to the 2 plus 100 times 100 plus 50,000, and it equals 65,000. Now that we have these values, simply we can find the average rate of change. It equals to 67,050 minus 65,000 divided by 10. This difference is 2,050. If you divide it by 10, it would be 205. So average rate of change of cost when the production level changes from 100 to 110 is 205. For the next part, we want to know what is the average rate of change of cost if the production level changes from 100 to 101. So basically this means that we want to know how much increase averagely happens in the production, the cost of the production, when we increase the production level 1 unit, 100 to 101. So for part 2, the average rate of change would be C of 101 minus C of 100 over 101 minus 100. The denominator is 1. Now we have to find C of 101. The cost of production when we make 101 units. If we plug in 101 in the given equation, it would be 0.5 times 101 to the 2 plus 100 times 101 plus 50,000. If you use a calculator to find this value, this equals to 65,200.5. So 65,200.5 minus, we had this value from the previous part, it was 65,000 over 1. If you subtract these two values, this shows that the average rate of change of cost would be, let me write down the answer here. The average rate of change of the cost would be 200.5. When you subtract these two values and you divide it by 1, this shows the average rate of change of the cost with respect to x, and x is the units.